This is Hockey Talk, episode number 9, where we talk everything hockey. It's May 9th, 2024, and I am John.
And I'm Mike.
Okay, let's go. Mike, the first topic tonight is the PWHL, the Professional Women's Hockey League. Toronto finished first overall in a 6-team league over the regular season. They earned the power to choose between playing the third or the fourth seed. This is definitely a unique rule to the PWHL. They've adopted this in its first inaugural season. Mike, I want to know what you think of this rule. What do you think about choosing your own opponent? Do you think this is a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, I think it's an interesting idea. Personally, it's not something that I would do because if I'm the team that's being picked by the Toronto team, they're probably going to have a little chip on their shoulder thinking, oh, they think that we're going to be the pushover and they're going to beat us type of thing. So, it's not something that I'm a big fan of. I think it's going to, I'm not sure that the Toronto players would necessarily be a fan of it either, considering they probably feel exactly what I was just talking about, is that, by picking their opponent, it's more or less saying, we don't think you're as good as the other team, so we're going to pick to play you. So,
Right.
yeah.
Now, in the article I was reading, I believe, and I should have paid more attention to it, but I believe it said something to the effect of that the players also had a say in this. So I don't know how they did it, if they voted or
Yeah.
how it worked out. But like you, I kind of think that this is maybe not such a great idea. I'd hate to have the coach of the other team plaster this up on the wall and go on about it and
Yeah.
create something that maybe was never going to be there in the first place, and you end up losing a series because of it. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan, but I'll tell you one thing. It's very interesting, and I've never heard of it before. Did you ever hear of this before? Anything like this?
I mean, I've heard the idea being thrown around, but not put in place. So I think more or less that the ones that were throwing the ideas around basically had the same thoughts uh,
Right.
as I did. That who nobody wants to say, yeah, we're going to play these guys because we think we can beat them more than the others. So yeah, it's something that I heard. I can't remember where and when, but never anything substantial came about. So
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you this question anyway, and I mean, maybe you've already kind of answered it, but do you believe that this rule could ever see the light of day in a professional hockey league?
I think it's probably not likely.
And
Uh,
besides the PWHL, obviously, because they
right,
are
right.
professional as well.
It's probably not likely. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the percent of players would actually support that if it was brought up. But I haven't even heard that it being thrown around in like one of the major league sports that we have. So I don't know if it's even something that would be up for discussion. So, but
Okay.
I don't see it happening. If it does, it'd be interesting to hear the feedback that comes out of it.
Right. Well, I'm going to follow this in the PWHL because I want to see, what people think of it, what the players think of it. And I just want to say to our listeners that I watched 2 periods of the game the other night, PWHL, and I think the hockey's pretty good hockey. I really enjoy watching it. Those
Yeah,
ladies work their guts out trying to get the puck from each other. So it's quite interesting stuff.
I agree. It's great hockey.
Yep.
It's like we were discussing earlier. It's tough to switch over during the NHL playoffs when we do a lot of talk about that. So it's tough to switch channels except for during intermissions and that sort of thing. But the hockey's great. Like it's excellent hockey.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go on to the second topic now. As soon as I saw this, I knew I wanted to bring this up, Mike. The Sharks win the NHL draft lottery with the number 1 pick, and they
Mm-hmm.
will probably take center Celebrini. Now, the GM, Mike Greer, basically, basically quoted as he's going to take them, unless something
Yeah.
happens between now and then. The Sharks, who at 18.5% had the best chance of winning the lottery, they're going to pick number one for the very first time in their history. That's kind of a surprise. Mike, how much do you think this pick is going to help the San Jose Sharks? What do you think?
It's going to be huge for them. They're in a complete rebuild. They've got very few veteran players on their team at this point. I mean, they've got Logan Couture, and that's about it. He's their veteran player. So, other than some depth players, but as far as guys that are going to be on that team down the road, uh, yeah, that's the team. It's going to be young. It's going to take a while before they become competitive. And this pick here, it's going to be great for them. They're going to get the top guy. So they do have some good young guys coming up through the system, but they are a ways away from contention. Could say that.
Right, right. And I'm more of a follower. Not that I dislike San Jose or anything, but I'm really interested in the Chicago Hawks. They
Right.
managed to get the second pick overall, which is exactly where they finished in the standings, which is another interesting thing. Who do
hmm
you think they should take? Now, the second, third pick, I noticed there's a little more argument about those, or a
Uh,
little more discussion. Who do you think?
I think that they should be picking Ivan Demidov of the one of the he plays over in Russia. I think he's the guy they're going to take. Um, he's the one that has been ranked number two for the most part, especially as a forward. I don't think there's any other forward that would compare with him. After Celebrini's picked, so because most of the top picks in the draft this year appear to be some defensemen. So, and I don't think Chicago is going to go with the defenseman. I think they're going to go with the forward since they don't have a lot of scoring, so they need to
Right,
bring someone in that can grow with Bedard and uh, be his wingman basically.
right. Because right now, Bedard really doesn't have a wingman.
Yeah, his best
I
guy
mean, he
is
sort of does, I guess.
Kurashev, and
Yeah.
other than that, it's fairly slim pickings there in Chicago for scoring offensive forwards. So I think he's the guy they're going to go with. I would be surprised if they picked somebody else.
Okay. So not a defenseman, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Did you think they would take a defenseman? I mean, obviously they need one, but Bedard needs help too. I mean,
Yeah, I mean they've still
scoring
got
brings people in the stands.
right. I mean for defense they've got Seth Jones. They drafted Korchinski a couple years ago, so he's probably their future number one defenseman. They've also got another younger kid. Last name's Allen that shows some promise too. So I don't think that the defense is a priority right now. I think it's getting some guys to play with Bedard, and who knows, next year maybe that's when they pick a defenseman. But I don't think they can pass up Demidov this year. So I'd be surprised if they did.
All right. So Demidov, people get ready to pick him if he's not picked, and put him on your bench or put him on your team. Might be a good idea. We'll talk about it later on anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what his contract is as far as the Russian players, how quick they're going to get them over
True.
here. But I mean, they've got some time to spare, I think. So even if he doesn't come over next year or the year after, similar to the Flyers with Mitchkov, had to wait a couple of years, and then once he
Right.
comes over. So I think you're looking at a similar scenario because I don't think the Russians want to let their good young players head over right away. So we shall see.
Okay. Well, the third topic, Mike, I think we're going to have to take a little bit of a victory lap here. Just a little tiny bit. Mike, I have to say, you were perfect in the first round of the NHL playoffs. You got all 8 series correct. And I say that is amazing. If anyone goes back and listens, they will know that you are 100%. You are 8 for 8, Mr. Perfect, part two. People in pools should probably listen to what you have to say, listen to our show about, and pick up the helpful tips about players and teams. What series was it maybe that concerned you the most out of the eight? Because I mean, you got them all right, but were you concerned about any of them at all?
The one that I was had concern with was the Dallas Vegas series, only
Especially
because
after the
you
start.
know, well, I mean, it did go 7 games, so which I was not surprised. But Vegas, defending Stanley Cup champs, they added a lot of pieces at the deadline. They had guys on long-term injured reserve that didn't play until the playoffs started. So when they were getting those guys back, you know, from not having them in the lineup to having them there playing, it makes a big difference for that team, which, it did ultimately. At the end of the day, Dallas did come out on top, but that was the series that I was thinking, you know what, if I'm going to be wrong on one of these, that's probably the one I'm going to be wrong on. So as it turned out, it didn't happen. So, yeah.
Well, you may have been concerned, but you were correct. And like I said, 8 for 8. Man, I wonder what the odds would have been in Vegas for you to get all eight of those series right. I bet it would have been quite high. We should have checked
Yeah,
it out.
yeah, it would have been good if I had put some money down on it, but you know,
Well, next time you will.
or, yeah, yeah, next time I'll probably get a bunch wrong, but yeah, I thought that in most cases the favorites won. The only underdog per se that didn't win or that won was the Colorado over Winnipeg, but I wouldn't really consider Colorado an underdog. So
No.
it's the only thing is they just finished a point or so behind them in the standings, but you know, pretty much nothing huge as far as a difference there.
Right, right. I know some people thought that Vegas was favored over Dallas for those reasons that you mentioned earlier,
Right.
and we've talked about Vegas a few times here because I really like the team, and but yeah, Dallas is just was just too good. Once they decided to shut things down, they ended
Yeah.
up winning, and that's kind of the way it went. So still, you're 8 for 8, and I think it's amazing. And I can't believe people that follow hockey are not watching this YouTube video because they should be. That's what I have to say for tonight. So
Well, maybe that'll change some minds there. And
absolutely. Okay, well, let's go on to the fourth topic, and we got to chat about the four series that are going on right now. Now, we talked about some of these last week, and I edited the video last week and got it out as soon as I could because I wanted people to, see what we were talking about. So
right.
let's talk a little bit about the Rangers and the Hurricanes. And before you go on and say anything about them, I just want to say I believe they're playing tonight. Yes, they are playing tonight.
Yeah.
And I know the Rangers are up 2 games to none. This series, fourth game is on Saturday. This series could be over by Saturday in theory. It's
Mhm.
possible. And Edmonton will have only played 2 games by Saturday. I just think that the scheduling is a bit
Yeah, the
muffed.
scheduling is a little bit odd considering, usually it's every other night there that a team is playing until they get their, 2 day break for travel or whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, no, it is a strange schedule, but once again, this series started the day that the first round was still going on, so
Yep.
it got an early start in. So,
And what do you think about? Are you still sticking with the Rangers here?
oh, absolutely. They're already up 2 games to none. Carolina's put Kochetkov in the net for tonight's game, so
Oh, they did. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
they made a change in that, and they said it's more just to give Anderson a break. So, you know what, Kochetkov had a good year this year, so uh, and Anderson has played a lot considering he had come back from missing several months, and then he played a pretty good stretch played a pretty fair amount of games down the stretch. So giving him a break, who knows? Maybe it'll be a bit of a turning point for them, but I just don't see the Rangers losing this. And that was my pick for this round. I believe I picked them in 6 games, and who knows, it might go less than 6 games. But I think we're probably looking at a split in Carolina, and then the Rangers might wrap it up at home when they get back.
Okay. Well, next is the Bruins and the Panthers. An interesting series, tied 1 game apiece. The Bruins come out like a house on fire in the first game of the series, and the Panthers kind of shot the lights out here the other night. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Uh, Still going with Florida. No question marks for me with that team. They play. If you can believe that the team plays a more physical game than Boston, I think it's Florida.
Yep.
And Florida has, talent throughout their lineup. Um, the defense is better than Boston's in my opinion, and the forwards a little bit more depth than Boston has. Like Boston, they rely a lot on Marchand and Pasternak for the most part, whereas Florida's got a lot more weapons. They've got Barkov, Reinhart, Tachuk. Uh, who else they got? Bennett, who's hurt right now. Um, I know I'm missing some missing some names right off the top of my head, but I think Florida's just too strong. And with the game last night, with all the fights, I mean that's right up Florida's alley. Like Tachuk was just waiting for somebody to want to
Oh,
go with
yes.
him. So I mean, and he wasn't holding back on Pasternak. I think he really wanted to crank him pretty good there. So yeah, I can't see Florida losing this series. And last night's game is, I think, more of what you're going to see to come, or more to see down the road here in that series.
Right, right. And it seems like the Bruins last night just sort of played into the whole Florida
Yeah,
scheme. I don't know if
yeah,
that's the proper way of putting it, but that's what it seemed like anyway.
yeah. I mean, for it's not often that you see a playoff game with that many fights in it anymore. I mean, back in the day, the
Sure.
Colorado Detroit ones, sure, you knew you were going to see fireworks, but it's not often you see that now. So, I think there was a lot of hatred after last year with Florida coming back and winning, and yeah, and Matt Tkachuk, it doesn't seem very difficult for him to rub people the wrong way. He just has that knack. So, it's yeah, I think Florida's
I
gonna take this one.
I really liked Chuck. I really like the guy.
For
So,
me, I like the style of play, but I mean, if he was on the Flyers, I'm sure I would love him. But
oh yes, of
I
course
just
you
I
would.
just find he's sometimes a little bit on the edge with how he plays. But it's it's one of those rare breeds now. You don't have a lot of
Yeah.
guys that play like that now. Some, but not a lot. Not like it was way back in the '80s and the '90s. So
And what about the going out west, the Avalanche and the Dallas Stars? I think this is really an interesting series now. Dallas
yeah.
obviously played 7 games. Colorado's had some rest time. They're not overly tired right now, I would say. What do you think about this series?
Still going Colorado, and I watched the game 2 nights ago, and Dallas was up 3-0, and
Yep.
then gone.
I just
Like
go.
so it just shows right there how Colorado's never out of a game. Like they're down by three, they're down 3-0 after the first period, and they're still going. Then they win the game in overtime. So I just don't see Colorado losing. It's just they're
Right.
just too talented, too fast. Power play is really good. So, and I mean, I like Dallas. I was a fan all year, but I just don't think that they are going to be able to match up with what Colorado has.
I had watched the overtime of that game, and the Dallas Stars they had control of the puck in the overtime,
Mm-hmm.
but it just took a few plays, and Colorado scored, and that was it. It was game over. They're
Yeah,
just so I don't know. They're so on the puck. Those guys. They skate so hard. Well, both teams do. I think it's an interesting matchup. So it should be
yeah.
an interesting series. Well, lastly, we have the Oilers and the Canucks. So we know that a Canadian team is going to make it to the semifinals at the very least, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. So, what do you think of this series, Mike?
Even though Vancouver won the first game, I'm still going to go with Edmonton. I don't think that Vancouver's goaltending is going to hold up against that offense. I was a little surprised Vancouver scored 5 goals themselves because I didn't think that their when you saw what they did with Nashville, they, they weren't scoring 5 goals a game, so it was a
No.
fairly low scoring series for the most part. So I just think that Edmonton is still going to be able to score too many goals for Vancouver to win the series. And I'd be surprised if Vancouver won, but I think this is the Oilers series to win as well.
A complete opposite of what we talked about with the last series.
Hmm.
This one, the Oilers were up, by 4 goals or whatever, and then they
Yeah.
ended up losing. So, or three, I think it was four. It was either 3 or 4. I lost track, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I was quite surprised. But yeah, so is there anything else that you wanted to say that we talked about this evening?
No, but I mean, if you just wanted to go back to your Mr. Perfect reference,
Oh,
I don't think I can throw a football and run down the field and catch it myself like the real Mr. Perfect could do. So
well, that's why I called you Mr. Perfect Part 2, because, we don't want to compare you to the real Mr.
that's
Perfect,
right. Yeah.
But you're a close second. We'll take you as a close second. And if people out there don't like it, too bad. You went 8 for 8. It's all on record. They can go back and watch the videos. Yes, you were off maybe on some of the games that you had picked, but you're pretty damn close
Yeah.
on those too.
Yeah. I hit on, I think, 3 or 4 of them.
You
So,
did.
but
Yeah,
that's always a tough call. So, uh, I
absolutely.
I didn't pick any sweeps, and I didn't expect there to be any, and there wasn't. So, but there was a little mix of everything else in there. So,
That's right. Well, I just want to say goodbye to a few teams, Mike. Unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to my Leafs. They brought it
yeah.
to 7 and they lost, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. At work, that's what I was saying was going to happen. So,
Yeah.
and it is. I have to say goodbye to the LA Kings, the Predators, the Golden Knights, and sadly the Jets. Hope all those teams do better next year because they're not going to do anything else this year.
Right.
So let us know in the comments where we went wrong, folks. That is what the comments are for. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you all next week. Later, folks. Goodbye.
Later.